and told me to leave, saying she's a woman who's cute. And all of a sudden she said, I'm not, she found a substitute. But I'm just letting you know that I'm still around. I'll be a bridge over troubled water, so you won't get drowned. Substitute is gonna put you down. I heard you smoking cigarettes by the pack.
Okay.
Leave and don't come back.
Let's see what's up.
It wasn't my fault, you were the
You know
one
what?
who
Get
said
my
that.
headphones
Now
for
you're
this.
drinking liquor, brings you
I should just use these headphones. I don't like
be around.
to particularly use them.
You won't get drowned.
But for some reason,
It's gonna put you
my other headphones won't. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna have to use these ones until I work out the proper and ideal way to get the better headphones to do it. But this is okay. This is fine. Alright. So let's get some music going.
smoking cigarettes.
Play it at the right level.
Since you told me to leave and don't come back. It wasn't my fault, you were the one who said
Okay, what we got here?
now
It's
you're
music,
drinking
bro.
liquor, which you didn't do.
Yeah.
But I'll be around.
So we should just go for it. I'm guessing you can hear that right now. That's fine. Okay. So that's it. According to Ring Magazine, Katie Taylor is their fighter of the year. That's what they got. So, Ring Magazine, fighter of the year for 2020. Fighter of the year for 2020. Katie Taylor. Does she deserve it? Is she really worthy of being fighter of the year? Or is it pandering to something else? I think she deserves it, to be honest. And even if she doesn't, who gives a fuck? They're opening the door. Sometimes you just have to pry it open. Else, these type of ladies will never measure up to the standard that others want to set. It is what it is. But that being said, we're going to talk about standards, and we're going to talk about Canelo Alvarez. Let me see if I can find an image of Canelo Alvarez here to sort of complement this video. Let's find an image of Canelo Alvarez. Let's search for him. It shouldn't be too hard to find an image of Canelo Alvarez. So here we are. And we're going to go through a whole plethora. We'll go through a whole plethora of stuff to do with him. Oh, that's him working out there. The usual Canelo Alvarez stuff, you know what I mean? The usual Canelo Alvarez stuff. We've had some images. Some images should come up later. But, what's it say here? As of the 19th, Canelo Alvarez says Jake and Logan Paul are disrespecting boxing, come spar me. You want to say boxing now, huh? Nobody cares. Alright, but look. I want to talk about Canelo Alvarez and the whole notion of pound for pound. Some people, I honestly believe that there has to be a resistance to the campaign and constant brainwashing of people. That the criteria for being pound for pound is simply if you are able to cleverly maneuver your way around certain fights, move up on weight, up and down, be sort of aided and abetted by sanctioning bodies. okay, and then have this resume that on paper looks incredible, while in fact it has been rigged to the hilt. But even if we were to ignore all that for a minute, which we can't, but let's say just for the sake of argument, we want to ignore that. Let's look at a different criteria. The whole criteria of pound for pound was never about whether you took losses or whether you didn't take losses. It's about your style, what you represent, and how that style will play out in different weight classes. Okay, now you could say in Canelo Alvarez's case that he's gone from weight class to weight class and taken on champions, taken on weak champions, very weak champions, okay, to gain accreditation, credibility, if you like, amongst the people who want to write these type of stories. But they know deep down, that's why there shouldn't be any question about it, should there really? And I think it's convenient to say those questions are coming from one place only, on one source. Other people are desperate, always desperate to want to find reason to suggest that they are jealous, and not only that, lazy and unwilling to do what it takes to accomplish what a person like a Teofimo Lopez, forgive me, I'll bring him in, or Canelo Alvarez has done. Alright, what did Tyson Fury do to get all this credit? I mean, I don't think, well, I don't know, but let's leave Tyson Fury out for a second. Let's leave Tyson Fury out for a second, and let's just think to ourselves. What criteria are you using to make Canelo Alvarez the number one pound for pound? Because remember, our criticism of Lomachenko back then was like he had a loss at least that he never avenged, he never rematched that loss, okay? And he didn't have enough fights and so on. But stylistically, when he was really on fire, pre-Teofimo Lopez and the shoulder injury and the layoff and so on and so forth, he looked unstoppable and he was stopping people. Okay? He looked unstoppable, he was stopping people. Alright? Canelo Alvarez, on the other hand, he got a dodgy decision against Erislandy Lara. He hardly hit Erislandy Lara. He hardly scored a headshot in that fight. Hardly scored a headshot in the whole fight because he couldn't touch Erislandy Lara's head. Got that decision. If you watch his body language after the fight, he thought he lost. But you know, they give him credit for taking the fight anyway against the wishes or the caution, the circumspect and worries and wariness of Oscar de la Hoya. But you think that Oscar de la Hoya, right? Do you think Oscar de la Hoya was that wary? Was that worried about the fight and didn't fix it behind the scenes to make sure that there was some sort of security blanket for Canelo Alvarez anyway? I think we all know. We all know. Alright? And I think that's one of those classic cases where we black people were being way too fair to Canelo Alvarez, because a lot of us, some of us also wanted to argue that, you know, Lara ran the whole fight. So fucking what? Because we've seen Tyson Fury do the same thing against Vladimir Klitschko and be worshipped as one of the greatest things that ever happened to boxing. Alright? But if Lara does it, it's a problem. But we, you know, fuck it. But let's even just look at the record. You're supposed to look at the career holistically. He goes for weak champions, that's by the by. But the same way that you want to look at the record strictly in a sort of sanitized, direct, statistical method, you could also say, well, in that case, he's taken a loss. I don't care when he was young or whatever. And he has a draw, he has a loss and a draw. And even if you know, yeah, he won that fight. A lot of them, we all know, were gifts and robberies. On top of which, black and white, he also has a drug censure against him for clenbuterol. So strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. You have a loss, you have a draw, and you have a drug controversy. In fact, you were busted for drugs, period. And we've seen your body change since post clenbuterol. We've seen Canelo Alvarez's body change. He fought Amir Khan, for crying out loud. I'm not Amir Khan. You count in his wins, and you're going to count Amir Khan in there too, the knockout. And we ask a question. This is why people are skeptical of his pound-for-pound status. Before he knocked out Amir Khan was outboxing Canelo Alvarez. But we all knew he has a weak chin, and everybody knew he was going to get knocked the fuck out once he got caught. I say this to say this. I say that to say this, forgive me. How is it that Amir Khan, who accomplished, well, not that much to be honest with you, professionally, but enough, okay, can box better than the person who won the Muhammad Ali trophy? That's why I argued that Callum Smith and Joe Gallagher are a disgrace, and they've sullied the reputation and the credibility by invalidating that win, by taking such an ignominious, disgraceful, embarrassing loss against Canelo Alvarez. It's almost, it wasn't competitive at all. That's the reason why it's so bad. Not the fact that Canelo Alvarez won, but to be a punching bag for Canelo Alvarez after you won the Muhammad Ali trophy is designed for one thing and one thing only: to feed into this narrative that Canelo Alvarez is this unstoppable, beautiful machine. No success whatsoever from a guy who has an 8-inch reach, who is known to use the jab quite effectively, but refused to do it, and then kept on crouching down to Canelo Alvarez's height and was getting caught against the ropes. From a country where you have seen Tyson Fury get away with moving about, you've seen Hughie Fury get away with moving about, you've seen Anthony Joshua get away with moving about in big fights. You don't have to make it pretty. What imposition, what pressure did he have to really deliver against Canelo Alvarez to make it look like super fantastic, or use his brain to engage, to launch guerrilla attacks against Canelo Alvarez with the jab, move, jab, move, and then deliver the right when he's not looking, keep away from the... What problem did he have to lose like Erislandy Lara lost? But instead, and that's why we have a problem, because we believe that the whole Canelo Alvarez narrative is being contrived and being created superficially. The whole the status of pound for pound for Canelo Alvarez is artificial. And the people that insist on it being the real thing, genuine thing, are willing to excuse behavior that they would not excuse in other cases, or a record that they would not excuse in other cases. How is it? How can a person who has one loss, one draw, been busted for drugs, be placed against a person who also, above a person who's moved in multiple weight classes, has become undisputed undisputed in one weight class, and now is now angling to actually take on the hardest fight, what is deemed to be the hardest fight within the division that he moved up into. Beat, if we're going by strictly by the data, beat the guy who beat a legend. He beat Jeff Horn, got revenge for Manny Pacquiao. Now, if you're going to argue, well, Jeff Horn didn't beat Manny Pacquiao, then you have to also extend that to some of Canelo Alvarez's wins, particularly against Gennady Golovkin, which I'm not going to mention. But a lot of people have a problem with that. And I said it's a case of what criteria you're using. When it comes to the hardcore fight, there's controversy around his fights. Did he really win that fight? And as people have pointed out, you go into a fight with Canelo, and people are arguing that if you have to knock him out to get a draw. That's the reputation you have, and that's the kind of person who want to make pound for pound number one. That's unacceptable. And everybody who argues that, anybody who argues that that's acceptable, they're entitled to. But don't simply suggest that people who have a difficulty with accepting that are somehow highly prejudiced. I know it means a lot to certain people, certain individuals to sort of hang on to the narrative, to reach for the narrative of the forever angry, envious, incapable and lazy black man. You know what I mean? Who wants what they call it, the equality of outcomes, as opposed to the equality of opportunity. But what kind of opportunity do these fighters get? Like even the last one that Canelo Alvarez got. Canelo Alvarez was going to compete for the WBA belt against Callum Smith. Gave Callum Smith 4 weeks, and then suddenly the WBC swoop in, knowing damn well that Canelo Alvarez was most likely going to win that belt, and threw the belt that they took off David Benavidez into the mix. So it became a unification, which would further boost the record of Canelo Alvarez. You want to tell me that is not contrived? That is not rigged? And we're supposed to say, yeah, he's number one pound for pound. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. You do that for somebody else. If they did it all around, I'd understand. But that's where I stand. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Have a good day. And as I always say, goodbye.